$100,000. His voice cut through the hum of the hotel bar like a blade through silk. Cold. Measured. Final. Celeste's hand froze halfway to her glass of water. Her breath caught somewhere between her ribs and her throat. She looked up slowly, her hazel eyes meeting the steel-gray gaze of the man sitting across from her. "I'm sorry, what?" He didn't blink. Didn't smile. Just slid a black card across the marble table between them, his fingers pale against the dim golden light. "One night," he said. "No strings. No questions. You walk away tomorrow morning with more money than you'd make in 3 years waiting tables." The world tilted. Around them, glasses clinked. Laughter floated from somewhere near the piano. But all Celeste could hear was the rush of blood in her ears and the quiet, terrible certainty in his tone. She should have stood up. Should have thrown her water in his face. Should have walked out and never looked back. But her hands were shaking. And he saw it. His jaw tightened. Something flickered behind his eyes. Not pity. Something sharper. Something that looked almost like pain. "Think about it," he said, standing. His suit was perfect. His posture, unbreakable. "You have until midnight." And then he was gone. Celeste sat there, staring at the black card on the table, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her chest wide open. She didn't know his name. She didn't know why he'd chosen her. But she knew one thing. This moment was about to change everything. "Hello, my amazing family and friends. I'm so glad you're here with me again today. If you're ready to dive into another powerful story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment telling me the country or city you're watching from. And guess what? Tomorrow, I've got another story lined up that will leave you just as captivated, so don't miss it. Now, let's get started." Celeste Rivera had learned early that life didn't hand out second chances. You took what you could get, you worked twice as hard as anyone else, and you kept your head down. That was the deal. That was survival. At 26, she had calluses on her feet from double shifts at the Grandview Hotel, a studio apartment in the worst part of Portland with a heater that only worked on Tuesdays, and exactly $213 in her checking account. Rent was due in 4 days. Her mother's medication cost $300 a month, and the pharmacy didn't take IOUs. She was drowning. Slowly. Quietly. But drowning all the same. It was a Wednesday night when everything fell apart. She'd just finished her shift. Her uniform smelled like spilled wine and someone's expensive perfume. Her lower back ached. Her shoes were still damp from when she'd slipped near the kitchen and caught herself on the corner of a steel counter. The manager, a round-faced man named Hugh, had pulled her aside just before she clocked out. "Celeste, we need to talk." Her stomach dropped. "Am I in trouble?" He scratched the back of his neck. Wouldn't meet her eyes. "Corporate's cutting hours. You're down to 3 shifts a week starting next Monday." 3 shifts. That was barely enough to cover groceries. "Hugh, please. I can't. I need the hours. I'll work overnight. I'll cover holidays. Anything." He sighed. "I'm sorry, kid. It's not up to me." She stood there in the dim hallway behind the kitchen, feeling the walls close in, feeling her lungs tighten, feeling everything she'd been holding together start to crack. She didn't cry. She never cried. Instead, she nodded. Smiled that small practiced smile she'd perfected over years of swallowing disappointment. "Okay. Thanks for letting me know." She walked out through the service exit into the cold October air and stood there for a long time, staring at the glow of the city skyline in the distance. Portland looked beautiful at night. All those lights. All those people living lives she'd never touch. She should have gone home. But she didn't want to sit in that tiny apartment and stare at bills she couldn't pay. So she did something she never did. She walked back inside. Not through the service door. Through the front lobby. Past the gold-trimmed columns and the chandelier that cost more than her entire year's salary. Past the doorman who didn't recognize her without her apron. She slipped into the hotel bar. It was quiet. Elegant. The kind of place where every drink cost $20 and came with a tiny napkin that had the hotel's logo embossed in gold. She sat at a small table near the back. Ordered a water. The bartender gave her a look, but didn't say anything. Celeste pulled out her phone. Opened her banking app. stared at the number until it blurred. $213. She closed her eyes. Excuse me. The voice came from her right. Low. Controlled. The kind of voice that didn't ask twice. She looked up. And that's when she saw him. Tall. Maybe 6'2". Dark hair, perfectly combed back. A suit that probably cost more than her car, which she didn't even own. His face was all sharp angles. Strong jaw. High cheekbones. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Gray. Cold. Empty. Like he'd spent years learning how not to feel. Is this seat taken? He asked. She blinked. No. He sat down without waiting for permission. Folded his hands on the table. Looked at her like he was solving an equation. You work here, he said. Not a question. Yeah. How did you know? Your shoes. They're slip-resistant. And you have a name tag outline on your shirt. She glanced down. He was right. The small rectangular shadow from where her tag had been pinned all day. Heat crept up her neck. Oh. He didn't smile. Didn't soften. Just watched her with that unnerving stillness. What's your name? Celeste. Celeste, he repeated. Like he was testing the weight of it. I'm Julian. Nice to meet you, I guess. Silence. He didn't fill it. Didn't try to make small talk. Just sat there, studying her like she was something rare and breakable. It made her want to run. It made her want to stay. Why are you here? He asked finally. I just got off work. Wanted to sit for a minute. That's not what I meant. She frowned. Then what did you mean? His gaze didn't waver. Why are you here? In this bar. Alone. Looking like the world just ended. Her throat tightened. She didn't owe him an answer. Didn't owe him anything. But there was something in the way he asked. Like he actually wanted to know. Like maybe, for one strange moment, someone was actually seeing her. I'm tired, she said quietly. That's all. Of what? Everything. He nodded. Like that made perfect sense. And then he said it. $100,000. She stared at him. For what? One night. The air left the room. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Her hands went cold. Are you serious? I don't joke. You're asking me to. I'm offering you a way out, he interrupted. His voice was calm. Too calm. Whatever you're running from. Whatever's crushing you. One night. And it's gone. Celeste's vision blurred at the edges. She gripped the edge of the table. You don't even know me. I know enough. You know nothing. I know you're desperate, he said. No cruelty in his tone. Just fact. I know you're scared. I know you're about to lose something you can't get back. And I know that $100,000 would change everything. Tears pricked her eyes. She hated that he was right. She hated that she was even considering it. Why me? She whispered. For the first time, something cracked in his expression. Just a flicker. A shadow of something human. Because you remind me of someone, he said softly. Who? He didn't answer. Instead, he stood. Pulled a small black card from his wallet and placed it on the table between them. Room 1207. Midnight. If you come, you'll have the money by morning. If you don't, I'll never bother you again. And then he walked away. Celeste sat there, staring at that card, her whole body trembling. She wanted to rip it up. Wanted to scream. Wanted to pretend this never happened. But her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. Sweetheart, the pharmacy called again. Can you cover the medication this month? I'm so sorry to ask. Celeste closed her eyes. And she picked up the card. What would you have done in Celeste's position? Let me know in the comments. She didn't go home. She sat in that bar until 11:30, turning the black card over and over in her hands. The edges were smooth. Expensive. It smelled faintly of leather and something sharp. Cologne, maybe. Her mind raced. $100,000. She could pay rent for the next 2 years. Buy her mom's medication for the next decade. Go back to school. Fix her life. All for one night. But what kind of person did that make her? What kind of person sold herself for money? Her stomach twisted. She thought about her mother. Thought about the way her hands shook when she couldn't afford her pills. Thought about the quiet shame in her voice every time she had to ask Celeste for help. She thought about the eviction notice she'd hidden under her mattress. She thought about the bone-deep exhaustion of working herself to the breaking point and still coming up short. And she thought about Julian. Those cold, empty eyes. The way he looked at her like she was the answer to a question he hadn't asked. At 11:50, she stood up. Her legs felt like water. She walked through the lobby. Stepped into the elevator. Pressed the button for the 12th floor. The doors closed. Her reflection stared back at her in the polished gold walls. Pale. Tired. Afraid. You don't have to do this, she whispered to herself. But the elevator kept rising. The hallway on the 12th floor was silent. Plush carpet. Soft lighting. Doors that cost more than most people's cars. Room 1207 was at the end. She stood in front of it for a long time. Raised her hand. Knocked. The door opened immediately. Julian stood there, still in his suit, though his tie was gone now. His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar. He looked at her without surprise. Without relief. Just recognition. Like he'd known she'd come. Come in, he said quietly. She stepped inside. The suite was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A king-sized bed with white sheets that looked like clouds. A sitting area with leather chairs and a bottle of wine she'd never be able to pronounce. The door clicked shut behind her. Her heart hammered. Julian walked to the windows, hands in his pockets, staring out at the lights below. There's a contract on the table, he said. Read it. She blinked. A contract. I'm a lawyer. I don't do anything without paperwork. Despite everything, a small bitter laugh escaped her. Of course you are. She walked to the table. Found a single sheet of paper. It was simple. Clinical. One night. $100,000. No further contact. Confidentiality agreement. Health clearances attached. Her hands shook as she read it. If you sign, Julian said, still facing the window, the money will be in your account by 8 a.m. If you don't, you can walk out right now. No harm. No judgment. She looked up at him. At the rigid set of his shoulders. The way he wouldn't turn around. Why are you doing this? She asked. Does it matter? Yes. Silence. He finally turned. His expression was unreadable. Because I'm tired too, he said. Something in his voice made her chest ache. She looked down at the contract. At the pen lying beside it. At the life she could have if she just signed her name. Her hand moved. The pen hovered over the line. And then she set it down. Julian's eyes widened. Just slightly. I can't, she whispered. Why not? Because I don't even know you. And this isn't who I am. You need the money. I know. Then why? Because if I do this, she interrupted, her voice breaking, I'll hate myself. And I've hated myself enough for one lifetime. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She turned toward the door. Celeste. She stopped. What if I gave you the money anyway? She turned back slowly. What? He stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. The same exhaustion she felt in her bones. What if I gave you the money, he said quietly, and asked for nothing in return? Her breath caught. Why would you do that? Because, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, you just proved you're the first honest person I've met in 10 years. She stared at him. I don't understand. You will. He walked to a desk in the corner. Pulled out a checkbook. Wrote something in clean, precise strokes. Tore it off. Walked back and held it out to her. She looked down. $100,000. Made out to Celeste Rivera. I don't want your pity, she said. It's not pity. Then what is it? He met her eyes. A test, he said. And you passed. She stared at the check in his hand like it might bite her. I don't understand any of this, she said. You offer me money for that. I say no. And now you're just giving it to me. Julian's jaw tightened. He lowered the check, but didn't put it away. Sit down, he said. Please. Something in his voice made her listen. She sank into one of the leather chairs. He sat across from her, the check resting on the table between them like a fragile truce. 5 years ago, he began, I was engaged. Celeste blinked. Whatever she'd expected him to say, it wasn't that. Her name was Victoria. Beautiful. Smart. From the right family. Everything looked perfect on paper. He paused. His fingers tapped once against his knee. A crack in his usual stillness. 2 weeks before the wedding, I came home early from a business trip. Found her in our bed with my business partner. Oh my God, Celeste whispered. She didn't apologize. Didn't cry. She just looked at me and said, you were never really here anyway. His voice was flat. Empty. And she was right. I'd spent 5 years building an empire and forgot to build a life. I'm so sorry. He shook his head. Don't be. She did me a favor. Showed me what I'd become. Cold. Distant. So focused on winning that I forgot what I was winning for. He looked up at her. After that, I stopped trusting people. Started testing them instead. Testing them how? Money, he said simply. I'd offer people things. Large sums. See what they'd do. See who they really were when everything was on the line. Celeste's stomach turned. That's awful. I know. You can't just buy people's worst moments and call it research. I know, he said again. Quieter this time. Then why do it? Because, he said, meeting her gaze, I needed to know if there was anyone left in this world who couldn't be bought. Anyone who'd choose their integrity over their survival. He gestured to the check. You did. She looked at him. Really looked at him. Past the expensive suit and the cold exterior. And she saw it. The loneliness. The exhaustion. The same desperate search for something real that she felt every single day. I'm not some noble hero, she said quietly. I wanted that money. I almost took it. But you didn't. Only because I was more afraid of losing myself than losing everything else. That's called character, Julian said. Tears burned her eyes again. She wiped them away roughly. I can't take your money, she said. Not like this. Why not? Because it's still charity. It's still me being rescued by some rich guy who feels bad. What if it wasn't charity? He asked. She frowned. What do you mean? He leaned forward. For the first time since she'd met him, something almost like hope flickered across his face. What if you worked for it? Doing what? I need an assistant. Someone I can trust. Someone who'll tell me the truth even when it costs them. He gestured around the suite. I have 3 companies. 18 employees. Meetings in 4 cities a month. And I haven't had a single person in my life I could rely on in 5 years. You want to hire me? She asked slowly. Yes. I'm a waitress. You're smart. Honest. And you see people. That's more valuable than any degree. She laughed. It came out shaky. Disbelieving. This is insane. Probably. I don't know anything about business. You'll learn. I don't even have a car. I'll provide one. Julian. 50,000 a year, he said. Plus benefits. Plus housing if you need it. 6-month contract. If it doesn't work out, you walk away with 6 months' salary and a reference that'll open any door in this city. Her heart hammered. Why are you doing this? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. Because I'm tired of being alone, he said. And I think maybe you are too. The truth of it hit her like a wave. She was alone. So desperately, achingly alone. And here was someone offering her a way out. Not through pity. Not through charity. But through a chance. A real chance. If I say yes, she said slowly, this is just a job. Nothing else. Agreed. And if you ever try something like tonight again. I won't, he said firmly. You have my word. She looked at him. Looked at the check. Looked at the life she could build if she just took one leap of faith. Okay, she whispered. His eyes widened. Okay. Okay, she said, stronger this time. I'll do it. And for the first time since she'd met him, Julian Hale smiled. It was small. Cautious. Like he'd forgotten how. But it was real. Celeste woke up the next morning in her own apartment, half convinced she'd dreamed the whole thing. But her phone buzzed at 7 a.m. A text from an unknown number. Car will pick you up at 9. Bring one bag. We leave for Seattle at noon. Julian. She sat up so fast she nearly fell out of bed. Holy hell. This was real. She scrambled to get ready. Threw clothes into a duffel bag. Called her mom. Sweetheart? You sound out of breath. Mom, I got a new job. What? When? Last night. It's complicated. But it pays $50,000 a year. Silence. Then her mother's voice, thick with tears. Oh, Celeste. I'm gonna send you money for your medication today. And rent. And groceries. You don't have to worry anymore, okay? Her mother sobbed. I'm so proud of you, baby. Celeste's throat closed up. I love you, Mom. I love you too. She hung up and stood there in her tiny apartment, shaking. At 9 a.m. sharp, a black car pulled up outside. The driver was polite. Professional. Didn't ask questions. He took her to a building downtown. Glass and steel. The kind of place that made her feel like she was wearing the wrong skin. Julian was waiting in the lobby. He looked different in daylight. Still sharp. Still controlled. But less haunted. Ready? He asked. I think so. You'll do fine. He led her upstairs to his office. Sleek. Minimalist. A desk that looked like it belonged in a museum. This is where you'll work when we're in Portland, he said. Your desk is outside. I've already had IT set up your accounts. She nodded, trying to absorb everything. Today's your first lesson, he continued. I have a meeting at 10. You're going to sit in. Take notes. Watch how it works. Okay. And Celeste. Yeah. If I do something you think is wrong, tell me. She blinked. In front of everyone? Especially in front of everyone, he said. That's why you're here. The meeting was brutal. 4 men in suits. All older. All looking at her like she was a stain on the furniture. Julian didn't introduce her. Just gestured for her to sit in the corner. They talked about a merger. Numbers she didn't understand. Legal terms that sounded like a foreign language. But she watched. And she noticed. One of the men kept interrupting Julian. Kept talking over him. Kept dismissing his points with a condescending smile. Julian's jaw tightened. But he didn't push back. Celeste frowned. By the end of the meeting, the man had basically steamrolled every decision. Julian stood. Shook hands. Smiled that cold, practiced smile. The men left. The door closed. Julian sank into his chair and rubbed his eyes. Well, he asked without looking up. What did you see? Celeste hesitated. Go on, he said. That guy in the blue tie, she said slowly. He was a jerk. Julian's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. His name's Richard. And yes. Why'd you let him walk all over you? Because he controls 40% of the board. So. Julian looked up at her. So I have to play nice. Do you? He frowned. What do you mean? I mean, she said, stepping closer, you're brilliant. Everyone in that room knew it. But you kept pulling your punches. Like you were afraid of taking up space. His eyes narrowed. That's a bold thing to say on your first day. You told me to tell you the truth. Silence. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. It was short. Surprised. But genuine. You're right, he said. I did. So why do you do it? she asked. Why make yourself smaller for people who don't respect you? He looked away. Because it's easier than fighting. Easier isn't better. No, he agreed quietly. It's not. Something shifted between them. A small crack in the wall he'd built around himself. Thank you, he said. For what? For being honest. She smiled. That's what you're paying me for. Over the next 3 weeks, Celeste's life transformed. She moved into a small apartment Julian's company kept for out-of-town employees. It was modest but clean. More space than she'd ever had. She traveled with him to Seattle, then San Francisco, then Denver. She sat in meetings, took notes, started learning the language of business. And slowly, carefully, she started speaking up. At first, Julian looked surprised every time she interrupted. But he never shut her down. In a conference room in San Francisco, she stopped him mid-presentation. Wait, she said. Every head turned. Julian paused, marker in hand. Yes. That number's wrong. You said 4.2 million. The report says 4.7. One of the investors smirked. Who's this? My assistant, Julian said calmly. And she's right. He corrected the slide. Looked at Celeste. Thank you. The smirk disappeared. After the meeting, Julian pulled her aside in the hallway. You didn't have to do that in front of everyone, he said. You told me to. I know. But that took guts. She shrugged, but her hands were shaking. I saw something wrong. I said something. Isn't that the job? He studied her for a long moment. Something warm flickered in those gray eyes. Yes, he said softly. That's exactly the job. But it wasn't just work anymore. Late nights in hotel lobbies, waiting for flights, they started talking. Real talking. She told him about growing up with a single mom who worked 3 jobs. About dropping out of college when her mom got sick. About feeling invisible most of her life. He told her about parents who measured love in stock portfolios. About building a company to prove he was worth something. About the emptiness of having everything and no one to share it with. Do you ever regret it? She asked one night in Denver. They were sitting in an airport lounge at midnight, their flight delayed by storms. Regret what? All of this. The money. The success. Giving up everything else for it. He stared into his coffee. Every single day. Then why keep doing it? Because I don't know how to do anything else. She wanted to reach across the table. Wanted to take his hand. Wanted to tell him he was more than his bank account and his board meetings. But she didn't. Because somewhere along the way, this had become more than a job. And that terrified her. By the end of the first month, Celeste had saved more money than she'd ever had in her life. She'd paid her mom's medication bills for the next 6 months. Paid off her debt. Started sleeping through the night without panic attacks about rent. She should have been happy. She was happy. But something else was growing beneath the surface. Something she didn't want to name. It happened on a Thursday in Portland. They were back in Julian's office. She was reviewing contracts when he walked in, loosening his tie. I need a favor, he said. What kind of favor? I have a charity gala tomorrow night. I need a date. Her stomach dropped. A date. Not like that, he said quickly. Just someone to stand next to me and smile. My ex will be there with her new husband. I'd rather not go alone. She should have said no. Should have reminded him about boundaries. But the thought of him standing alone in a room full of people who'd hurt him made her chest ache. Okay, she said. He blinked. Really? Really. But I don't have anything to wear. I'll take care of it. The next morning, a dress arrived at her apartment. It was midnight blue. Simple. Elegant. The kind of dress she'd only ever seen in magazines. She tried it on and barely recognized herself. That night, Julian picked her up at 7. When she opened the door, he froze. You look. He trailed off. Ridiculous, she offered. Beautiful, he said quietly. Heat flooded her face. Oh, thank you. The drive to the gala was quiet. She could feel the tension radiating off him. "You okay?" she asked. "Fine." "Julian." He sighed. "I haven't seen her since the day I moved out. And now I have to watch her pretend we were nothing." "Do you still love her?" "No." He said it with absolute certainty. "But I hate that she gets to walk around like she didn't destroy me." Celeste reached over, placed her hand on his. "Then don't let her," she said. "Don't give her that power." He looked down at their hands. Slowly, carefully, he turned his palm up and threaded his fingers through hers. "Thank you," he whispered. They walked into the gala together. It was everything she'd expected. Crystal chandeliers. Women in gowns that cost more than cars. Men in tuxedos discussing deals over champagne. Julian kept her close. Introduced her as his assistant and his friend. And then she appeared. Victoria. Tall. Blonde. Stunning in a red dress that hugged every curve. She walked straight up to them, her new husband trailing behind like an accessory. "Julian," she said. Her voice was silk over ice. "It's been a while." "Victoria." Her eyes slid to Celeste. Dismissive. Cold. "And who's this?" "This is Celeste," Julian said. His hand moved to the small of Celeste's back. "Protective. She works with me." "How sweet," Victoria said. The condescension dripped from every word. He always did have a soft spot for charity cases. Celeste's breath caught. Julian's hand tightened on her back. But before he could speak, Celeste stepped forward. "Charity case," she repeated calmly. "That's interesting. Because from where I'm standing, Julian's the most decent man in this room. And if you were too shallow to see that when you had him, that says a lot more about you than it does about me." Victoria's smile froze. Her husband coughed. Julian stared at Celeste like she'd just sprouted wings. "Excuse me," Victoria said icily. She turned and walked away. Celeste's heart hammered. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." Julian turned her to face him. His eyes were bright. Alive. "That," he said, "was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I probably just made things worse. You stood up for me." His voice cracked slightly. "No one's ever done that before." She looked up at him. At the wonder in his face. At the way he was looking at her like she'd just rearranged his entire world. "You deserved it," she said softly. They stood there in the middle of the gala, the noise fading around them, and something shifted. Something deep and undeniable. He leaned closer. Just an inch. Her breath hitched. "Celeste," he whispered. "Yeah. I think I'm falling for you." The world stopped. She should have pulled away. Should have reminded him this was professional. Should have protected herself. But she didn't. "I think I'm falling for you too," she whispered back. His hand came up to cup her face. Gentle. Reverent. And then he kissed her. It was soft. Hesitant. Like he was afraid she might disappear. But she didn't disappear. She kissed him back. And in that moment, everything she'd been running from, everything she'd been afraid of, just melted away. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "This is a terrible idea," he murmured. "Probably. I'm your boss. I know. People will talk. Let them." He laughed. Soft and disbelieving. "What are we doing?" She smiled. "Something real." They left the gala early. Drove back through the city in comfortable silence, their hands linked across the console. When he pulled up to her apartment, he walked her to the door. "I don't want this to be complicated," he said. "Then don't make it complicated. What if I mess this up? What if you don't?" He kissed her again. Slower this time. Deeper. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered against her lips. "Just to talk. I'm not ready to say goodnight yet." She should have said no. Should have kept the boundary. But she was tired of being afraid. "Okay," she said. They went back to his penthouse. Sat on the couch overlooking the city lights. Talked until 3 in the morning about everything and nothing. He told her about his childhood. About a father who never said "I love you." About building walls so high he forgot how to let anyone in. She told him about loneliness. About working herself to exhaustion just to feel like she mattered. About being terrified that happiness wasn't meant for people like her. It is, he said, taking her hand. You deserve everything good in this world. So do you, she whispered. He pulled her close. She rested her head on his chest, listened to his heartbeat, and for the first time in years, she felt safe. She woke up on his couch at dawn, wrapped in a blanket she didn't remember him putting over her. Julian was in the kitchen, making coffee. He looked over when she stirred, smiled. Morning. Morning, she said, her voice rough with sleep. I didn't want to wake you. She sat up, rubbed her eyes. What time is it? 6:30. I should go. Or, he said, walking over with 2 mugs, you could stay. Have breakfast. Let me take you to work. She took the coffee. People will notice. Let them. Julian. I don't care, he said firmly. I spent 5 years hiding. Pretending. I'm done with that. If this is real, I want it to be real. No secrets. No shame. Her throat tightened. You mean that? Every word. She set down her mug. Stood. Walked over to him. Then yes, she said. Yes. Yes to breakfast. Yes to riding to work together. Yes to whatever this is. He cupped her face in both hands. I don't have all the answers, he said. I'll probably mess this up 100 times. Good thing I'm stubborn. He laughed. Kissed her forehead. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For giving me a reason to stop running. Over the next 2 months, everything changed. They didn't hide it. Julian introduced her as his girlfriend at the next board meeting. A few eyebrows raised. A few whispers started. But he didn't flinch. Anyone have a problem with that? He asked calmly. Silence. Richard, the man in the blue tie, cleared his throat. As long as it doesn't affect business. It won't, Julian said. Then he smiled. Actually smiled. It'll improve it. And it did. Celeste brought something to his world that had been missing. Warmth. Honesty. A reminder that success meant nothing without people to share it with. She started suggesting changes. Small ones at first. Why don't you meet with your employees more? She asked one day. I have department heads for that. Yeah, but when's the last time you actually talked to the people doing the work? He frowned. I don't know. Maybe you should. The next week, he started having lunch in the company cafeteria. Just sitting with random employees. Listening to their ideas. Their concerns. Word spread fast. The cold, distant CEO was changing. And people noticed. Productivity went up. Morale improved. 2 employees who'd been planning to quit decided to stay. You're good for him, Julian's secretary, an older woman named Pam, told Celeste one afternoon. I'm just being myself. Exactly, Pam said with a knowing smile. That's what he needed. But not everyone was happy. Victoria started calling. At first, Julian ignored it. But she was persistent. One night, Celeste was at his penthouse when his phone rang for the 5th time that evening. Just answer it, she said. He sighed. Picked up. Put it on speaker. What do you want, Victoria? I heard you're dating your assistant. Her voice was sharp. Mocking. Really, Julian? A waitress. Celeste's jaw tightened. Julian's eyes went cold. Careful. I'm just saying, you could do better. This is clearly some midlife crisis. You mean like sleeping with my business partner was your crisis? Julian said calmly. Or does that not count? Silence on the other end. Don't call me again, Julian said. We're done. We've been done. Move on. He hung up. Looked at Celeste. You okay? He asked. Are you? She countered. Never better. He pulled her into his arms. She doesn't get to touch this. What we have is real. She can't take that away. Celeste buried her face in his chest. I love you, she whispered. He went still. She pulled back, eyes wide. I'm sorry. That just came out. I didn't mean to. Say it again, he said softly. What? Say it again. Her heart hammered. I love you. His eyes shone. I love you too. I've been terrified to say it. Terrified I'd scare you away. You won't. Promise. Promise. He kissed her. Deep and slow and full of everything they'd been holding back. When they broke apart, he was smiling. That real, genuine smile that made him look years younger. Move in with me, he said. She blinked. What? Move in. Stop paying rent on that apartment. Half your stuff's here anyway. Julian, that's huge. I know. And I want it. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to come home to you every night. I want to build a life with you. Tears pricked her eyes. You're serious? Completely. She laughed. Cried. Threw her arms around his neck. Yes, she said. Yes. 1,000 times yes. 3 months later, Celeste stood in the penthouse that was now her home, staring out at the city she'd once felt so small in. Her mom's medication was covered for the next 2 years. She'd enrolled in online business classes. She had a closet full of clothes that actually fit. A life she'd never dreamed possible. But more than that, she had Julian. And he had her. Hey, he said, walking up behind her. He wrapped his arms around her waist. Rested his chin on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? That night in the hotel bar, she said softly. When I made the worst offer of my life. When you made the offer that changed everything. He turned her around to face him. I was so lost back then. So convinced that everyone had a price. That no one was real anymore. And now I know I was wrong. He cupped her face. You showed me that there are still good people in this world. People who choose love over money. Integrity over survival. I didn't do anything special. You did everything special. He kissed her forehead. You saved me, Celeste. You saved me too. They stood there, holding each other as the sun set over Portland, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. I have something for you, Julian said suddenly. What? He pulled a small box from his pocket. Her breath caught. It's not what you think, he said quickly. Not yet, anyway. I want to do that right. Take you somewhere beautiful. Get down on one knee properly. Then what is it? He opened the box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet. Engraved with words. She picked it up. Read the inscription. You were worth waiting for. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Julian. I mean it, he said, fastening it around her wrist. Every version of my life before you was just me killing time. Waiting for something real. Waiting for you. She kissed him. Poured everything she felt into it. When they broke apart, she was smiling through her tears. So, she said. When are you going to do it right? Do what? Ask me properly. He grinned. Impatient. Maybe. How about next month? There's a cabin I own in the mountains. Just us. No distractions. Perfect. You already know the answer, don't you? Yes, she said simply. I've known since that night at the gala when you looked at me like I mattered. You do matter, he said fiercely. You matter more than anything. 1 year later, Celeste stood in that same hotel bar where it all began. But this time, she wasn't alone. Wasn't desperate. Wasn't drowning. She was wearing a simple white dress. Her hair was pulled back. The silver bracelet gleamed on her wrist. And on her left hand, a ring sparkled. Julian stood beside her, handsome in a dark suit, his hand warm in hers. They'd gotten married that morning. Small ceremony. Just her mom, his closest friend, and a judge who cried through the whole thing. Now they were back where it started. Why did you want to come here? Julian asked. Because this is where my life began, she said. The real one. The one I actually wanted. He pulled her close. Mine too. The bartender, the same one from that night, walked over. Can I get you folks anything? Julian looked at Celeste. She looked back. "Two waters," they said in unison. Then burst out laughing. The bartender smiled, confused but charmed, and walked away. "I still can't believe you offered me money that night," Celeste said, shaking her head. "I still can't believe you said no." "Best decision I ever made." "Second best," he corrected. "What was the first?" "Saying yes when I asked you to work for me. To trust me. To love me." She leaned up and kissed him softly. "I'd make those choices again," she whispered. "Every single time." "So would I." They stayed in that bar for an hour, talking and laughing, two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chose to walk into the light together. When they finally left, hand in hand, Celeste looked back one last time. At the table where she'd sat, broken and desperate. At the spot where Julian had made an offer that should have destroyed her. But instead, it saved them both. "Thank you," she whispered to the universe, to fate, to whatever force had brought them together. And then she turned to her husband, her partner, her home. "Ready?" he asked. "Always," she said. And they walked out into their future. Together. So tell me, do you believe that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best chapters of our lives? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your story. ***. 3 years after that night in the hotel bar, Celeste sat in a boardroom she now co-owned. Julian had made her a partner in his company 18 months ago. Not because she was his wife, but because she'd earned it. She'd finished her business degree. Launched an initiative that helped formerly homeless individuals get job training and placement. Turned one of Julian's struggling divisions into the most profitable arm of the company. And she'd done it all while staying exactly who she was. The meeting wrapped up. Investors shook her hand. Congratulated her on another successful quarter. When the room cleared, Julian stayed behind. "You were amazing," he said. "I learned from the best." "No." He walked over. Took her hands. "You were always amazing. I just gave you the space to show it." She smiled. Kissed him. "We make a good team. The best team." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Smiled. "It's your mom. She's asking if we're still coming for dinner Sunday. Tell her yes. And that I'm bringing dessert this time." He typed quickly. Then looked up. "She also wants to know when she's getting grandkids." Celeste laughed. "Tell her to be patient." "Should I be patient?" She looked at him. At the hope in his eyes. The love. "Maybe not too patient," she said softly. His face lit up. "Really? Really? I think we're ready." He picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. When he set her down, he kept his arms around her. "I love you," he said. "I love the life we built. I love who I am when I'm with you. I love you too. And Julian. Yeah. Thank you for seeing me that night. For offering me a way out, even if it was the wrong way. Because it led to the right everything." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you for saying no. For showing me that some things can't be bought. That the best things in life are the ones you earn through showing up, being honest, and choosing love." They stood there in the empty boardroom, holding each other, two people who'd started as strangers in a hotel bar and became each other's home. Outside, the city sparkled in the afternoon sun. Somewhere out there, someone else was drowning. Someone else was desperate. Someone else was one moment away from either destruction or salvation. And Celeste hoped they'd find their way. Just like she had. Not through money. Not through shortcuts. But through the courage to choose themselves even when it cost them everything. Because that's where real love begins. Not in what we're willing to take. But in what we're brave enough to walk away from. And what we're strong enough to build after.